Kentucky. I think it is a very important topic that we discuss here in Kentucky. I'm Dave Atkinson, President and CEO of the Kentucky Chamber of Commerce. We represent the interest of more than 90,000 employers in the state, and I'm here to proudly support charter school legislation for the 2015 session. I don't do that because of some small group that decided, hey, let's be for that, or let's show up and be for that. We did that because our membership, to the tune of about 87% of our members now, favor charter schools as a tool by which Kentucky can improve education. Employers need educated workers, and that goes from the big companies like UPS and Toyota and Lexmark. It goes all the way to the hardware store on Main Street. If you go talk to business people, very quickly the discussion turns to their workforce and the education system. That's why education is the top strategic priority of the Kentucky Chamber of Commerce. It's not a third or fourth or fifth ranked item on our agenda. It's number one and has been for quite a few years. You know, the best argument that I've heard against charter schools is that the research is mixed. We heard a slightly different story today on school choice, but you know, there are those who say, well, the research is mixed as to whether or not charter schools make a difference. If my child or my grandchild were stuck either by a family economic situation or racial situation or whatever in a persistently underperforming school, I would gamble on mixed results every time. I'd say that's probably going to be better than persistently low performing. You know, I know we line up on these issues in Frankfurt sometimes. We're for it, our team's against it, our team's for it, whatever. You know, on this particular issue, you have a lot of the conservative think tanks that are for charter schools. You can predict that pretty easily. But at the same time, you find folks from the urban areas of Louisville lining up in favor of this legislation. You find the Obama administration, specifically Secretary Arne Duncan, lining up for this. Kentucky, by being one of 8 states that does not allow charter schools officially or in a meaningful way, lost big-time points on the Race to the Top grant, and Tennessee got $400 million, and we didn't get a cent in that first round. We lost points and got taken out of the running, and I know people want to argue about that, but look at the points that we lost. Look at the quotes in the paper the next day of the Courier-Journal after we lost over $400 million, most of which would have gone for teacher training in this state. We have districts of innovation. Some of you on this panel know a whole lot more about that than most of us. But districts of innovation is a good step forward, but it's not all of what charter schools have to offer. It offers some select districts an opportunity, but certainly not all, and the number of districts applying for that status has waned. So what we're doing now is not enough. We think that this can be used as a tool in the toolbox by which Kentucky can improve. And we're not naysayers that show up and condemn the public schools. Our chamber is proud to say, proud to affirm that this state has made progress in education over the last generation, in part because of what this legislature has done to improve education consistently for the last generation or so. We're proud of that. We stand up with our teachers and work for more progress and with our administrators. But this is one tool where I think we need to drop our partisan labels and really look hard at how could this work for us. As Representative Cesare said, in Bowling Green they have this wonderful top-of-the-charts Math and Science Academy. Moorhead's about to add one. That's great for kids who are gifted and talented. I'm all for that. We're all for that. We all would have to celebrate that. But why shouldn't it be the same and give the same flexibility of choices for a child in a maybe disadvantaged urban area? I would close by saying this, that we would not propose that this is a panacea for education in Kentucky. It's not a panacea for the business community in Kentucky. But, again, think about your own family. If your child or your grandchild was stuck in a situation where you couldn't move because of family situation, economics, whatever, you couldn't move to another district and have that choice, it might be a panacea for that family. So I would offer this to ask for your serious consideration as we move forward and discuss specifics, that this become a possibility in Kentucky. 42 states have figured it out in one way or the other. Why aren't we in that group? Thank you very much.
Thank you again for this opportunity. As I said before, my name is Wayne Lewis, and I've had the opportunity to talk with some of you personally and with this group before. So to begin my remarks today, and I want to be brief because I want to leave time for ample time for questions and responses, but I actually want to start the conversation with shopping and not with schools. And so this may give you a little bit more insight into who I am and how I approach this issue. I consider myself to be a relatively loyal shopper. So my grocery store of choice is Kroger. I shop at Kroger for everything, right? That's the place where we go. But my loyalty to Kroger would end at the point where the products that Kroger provides don't meet my needs. As much as I like Kroger and as much money as I spend there, I wouldn't continue to spend my money there if what I went there to get didn't work, if it didn't feed my family well. So let's say, for example, I go to Kroger tonight and I buy some chicken, and I'm going to take that chicken out and cook it for dinner tonight, and that chicken is bad. Am I saying that tonight I would make the decision that I'm not going to be a Kroger shopper anymore? Probably not. I'd probably give Kroger another try. In fact, I'd probably give Kroger 2 or 3 more tries. But at some point, if Kroger couldn't sell me chicken that met the needs of my family, I'd stop going to Kroger. And I bet most of my neighbors and friends and family in my community would stop going to Kroger as well. Well, if we take that metaphor and we think about the traditional public school system in the state of Kentucky, and we compare it to Kroger, what is not the case is that the chicken is bad. That's not the case. I think most of us eat chicken at some point or another. Most of us buy some chicken. I think there's a relatively smaller group of folks, however, that are salmon lovers. So salmon's a big deal in my house. And so if Kroger couldn't sell me salmon, I would stop going there. But a lot of other people wouldn't. Here's what I'm saying about the traditional public school system. I think they're getting chicken right. But I think salmon lovers are in trouble. Salmon lovers are a smaller percentage of consumers, of children, of families. But the traditional public schools are not serving that smaller percentage of our children and our families in an adequate way. And I'm not making this up. One of the things that we've provided for you today, we worked real hard to get this in your hands today, is a brief on the scope of the achievement gap in Kentucky. And if you weren't familiar with those numbers before, those numbers are extraordinary. There are no ifs, ands, or buts about it. The traditional public school system in our Commonwealth is failing to provide an adequate education for children of color and economically disadvantaged children. That's true when you look at the numbers across the state. That's true when you look at the numbers in Jefferson County. That's true when you look at the numbers in Fayette County. Often when I'm here, I talk about Jefferson County. Today, I want to talk about Fayette County. The achievement gap in Fayette County is extraordinary. Extraordinary. If you take a look at some of these numbers, for those of you who have the document that we shared with you, I'm talking about figure number 5, where we're looking at elementary school mathematics performance. Elementary school mathematics performance. In 2012-2013, 61.1% of white children in Fayette County scored at the proficient or distinguished level on the K-Prep assessment. 61.1%. That's not a great number by any stretch. But look at the percentage for African American children. 26.9%. 26.9% of African American children in Fayette County in 2012-2013 scored at the proficient or distinguished level. So the only way you can take these numbers and not get fiery mad like I am is if you say to yourself, well, that's just how black kids perform. But that's not just how black kids perform. Our traditional public schools have not met the needs of economically disadvantaged and students of color economically disadvantaged students and students of color. And so what we are arguing for is not some panacea. What we are saying is for children, for families that have not been served, and these data are clear, they have not been served well, that we have to provide alternative options for families. We're saying that if you continue to go to Kroger and Kroger will not give you good salmon, then you need another grocery store to choose at some point. A failure to give additional options to children and families that we know for a fact are not serving those families well is nothing different than forcing families to go to a grocery store and buy spoiled meat or fish. We know what they're serving is bad for them, but we force them back time and time again. Let me say briefly before I close, districts of innovation, as my colleagues have said before, I do believe is a step in the right direction. However, the districts of innovation was not designed to deal with the types of problems that we're talking about. Districts of innovation as a policy was not designed to deal with these achievement gaps. And so I don't think it's fair to hold it accountable for doing so. First of all, I don't believe, and I could be wrong because you all are experts on the bill, I don't believe that bill gives school districts anything that they couldn't already do. I think school districts could already apply for waivers. The other thing that districts of innovation that we don't get with districts of innovation is that the innovation has to come from within the school district. So a school district has to say, hey, I know how to deal with this problem. I'm going to apply to the state and let the state give me a waiver so that I can fix it. But what if the state is unwilling or unable to deal with the problem? Then what? The last comment I'll make is the question that we typically get in these types of conversations. Well, if we allow charter schools in Kentucky and those dollars do in fact follow the children from the traditional public school to the charter school, then what about the traditional public school district that loses those funds? Well, I'd say two things. One, for most of us in this room, we already have choice. The truth is, for most of us in this room, as Lynn said, if we're unhappy with the services our children are receiving in a traditional public school, we pick them up and we move them somewhere else. That's middle-class privilege. That's the privilege of affluent people, of professional people, people with means. Poor people can't do that. The second thing that I would say, in terms of that question, what happens to the traditional public schools, is I think it's the wrong question. The question shouldn't be what happens to the traditional public schools if we allow additional public school options. The question should be what happens to those children if we don't provide them with alternative options? What happens to those children, those African American, economically disadvantaged Latino children, if we don't provide them options that can better meet their needs? See, I think we've gotten to the place where we're more interested in defending institutions that don't serve children well than we are in defending children. I thank you for your time, and I look forward to your questions.